Rise to Ruins is a game that is tasked with answering the big questions. How long can villagers survive without houses? How long can villagers survive without food? How long can villagers survive without water? How long can villagers survive with a zombie trying to eat their face? And most importantly, what do you get if you put the settlers in black and white in a blender with a tower defense game? Rise to Ruins aims to answer these big questions. Rise to Ruins is at its core a god game which tasks you with the construction and defence of a village. The settler's influence comes from that village management. You'll need to harvest raw resources for your buildings, and later process those resources for higher tier buildings. You'll create tools and manage supply and demand and more. Unlike the settlers, and more like other games in its genre, you'll also have to care for your villagers' needs. You'll need to provide them with food, water and shelter. But that's not all they'll need, for not long after you begin, or as soon as you begin in some cases, a horde of monsters will come after you and want to wreck your stuff. This might be a good time to use those god powers. While not as far reaching as some other games, your god powers will allow you to burn your enemies, save your villagers, and just lend a hand now and again. And in the early game they'll be very useful. Now for the tower defense elements I mentioned. You're going to need defenses from these monsters. The best way is not to put up a wall, not to build an army, but you can do that. It's to build a maze. A maze of death. You see, what you'll want to do is sort of set up a lane for the enemies to come through and put up a bunch of towers to kill them before they get to your base. So, that's an overview. Let's take a step back and look at the game as a whole, before diving back in to look at the two key aspects of it. Now, yes, this game uses pixel art. This is something that's become sort of a red flag for a lot of people after the indie game boom. But this is definitely one of those games that takes full advantage of the art style. It has a fantastic aesthetic that for me really shines through with the buildings. I just love the way they've got a lot of space and fences, but it all has a purpose. I find it hard to describe why I love the buildings so much, but I do. And as they upgrade, they make more and more use of the space. Your camp starts as just a few tents and some fences, but that room eventually gets used to become a castle that fills the space quite nicely. You can paint the world with your buildings and the results are beautiful. Or, like me, you can make a bit of a mess. Plus, the world map looks fantastic in its simplicity, like a painted picture. The world map is also where you'll be playing. Each profile will give you access to this map. It's the same each time, but there's a lot of levels on it and you'll probably not beat all of them. And even if you do, there are skirmishes. The world map serves as your sort of level select. You can build a village in each of these levels. They don't interact too much at the minute, but that may change. The game receives a lot of updates as it is in early access. However, for my money, this game could well be 1.0 and done, and it would still be worth it. The game has been in development for a few years, and has just been incrementally adding features, like water earlier this year, to a full housing overhaul and implementation of traders just recently. The game doesn't really have a roadmap or any upcoming features listed, just whatever the dev thinks is fun. Think of it like Minecraft's alpha and beta phases. The game is good and worth playing, but keeps getting new features until the devs just sort of decide it's 1.0. And even then the development looks to continue. Really at this point, I feel like we could pretend this isn't in early access, and it doesn't even need to be. Also it's £7. That last point needs no more input from me. Now it looks good, has a great concept, has an active dev cycle, and you can build a doghouse for your dogs. But does it play well? For me, this is a game of two halves, so let's take a look at each. The first half is the village building. You'll start on a map with the timer already counting down, and the inability to pause and look around. You quickly need to find a spot with wood, stone, water, and food, which looks like it's defensible. Then your villagers are teleported from space, and you need to work quickly. This game does suffer a bit from the Veruca Salt syndrome of I want it now, in that you need to get everything pretty darn quick. You'll need a woodcutter and a stonemason for the raw materials, and then you'll need houses or people will get pissed off or dead. Now, you'll need to get a well and a water source going on if you decide you're going to gamble your life on rain or not. Also, you probably need to upgrade your camp for all of this so you get more buildings. And oh god, it's night, and okay, there's no enemies, but it's fine. Let's get some walls, and oh, we forgot a farm. And now we need towers, but those towers don't work unless we get the ammo maker, and oh god, it's night too, and we're all going to die. While the game can be a bit cluttered at the start, you can soon stop worrying about death due to forgetting a building, and relax into frantically building defences to defend yourself from the hordes of enemies. While you'll be under the gun for most of the game, balancing defences and infrastructure is actually part of the fun. The start can be a bit much, but everything after that it sort of settles into a steady stream of oh god. The game does kind of present you with everything, tell you to build it, and then you've got everything. A bit more variety or sense of progression might help, but they've just added markets, so it's on its way. Overall, I really enjoy building my village, and you can find a good few hours of fun just doing that. Hey, if you wanted, you could probably get your money's worth just building villages. But it's combining with the second half of this game, which really makes it shine. That second half being the tower defense. Once you've frantically built the start of a settlement and are just starting to relax, that's when zombies come and want to break your stuff. Now there's a mad dash of using your god powers to hold out until the next tower is built, or wondering can you really upgrade that farm? Death by skeleton or starvation in winter? You decide. It's this rush that keeps you from just maxing out the tech tree really quickly and turns a good village manager into a pretty great one. Now, as mentioned previously, one of the mechanics of this game may not be that intuitive. While the game actually has a pretty good tutorial, complete with video tips while you play, it doesn't tell you about the concept of mazes. Once you figure out you don't just wall off, you build a maze for the monsters to get stuck in, you'll live a lot longer. It's just not really explained in the game right now. Once you've got that though, it's pretty fun. You'll start with one tower in a wall trying to keep them away, and then slowly try and make a big long route for them while your towers batter them down. These two elements merge together seamlessly and make a great game. You have to balance out making defences with upgrading your infrastructure. Do you cast that spell to grow trees, or do you make a golem to defend from these zombies? Figuring out when to invest in buildings or military reminded me of StarCraft 2 of all things. The feeling of making it through some nights by the skin of my teeth is a great feeling. The game is designed for you to lose, a la Dwarf Forest, so don't be too concerned if you die, and if you want a better chance, let's talk difficulty. The game features a number of difficulty settings, from Sandbox, which will just let you build your ideal village with no enemies at all, to Nightmare, where the map starts with monsters already on it. I recommend starting on Traditional for a game or two to get a hang of the mechanics. Diving straight into Survival doesn't give you much breathing room. Once you've got a few rounds of Traditional under your belt, Survival is tons of fun. I've lost a few times, but I've learned from them, and that's what's fun. And if none of those work for you, Rise to Runes has got you covered. Customizable difficulty, baby! Want long summers? Got it. High risk of meteors? No worries. Insane levels of undead and never-ending winter? All options. I love customizable difficulty in games. Power to the players. So, with all of that said, Rise to Runes is an easy recommendation from me. Early access or no, if the concept of this game sounds good to you, I think you'll have a great time. Rise to Runes takes bits and pieces from across the genre and mixes them into its own wonderful village murder simulator. It's pretty great. I've enjoyed my time with it. Time that I don't think's over quite yet. Also, it's £7. Great value, you may get a few hours out of it, or a few hundred. And if you'd like to see the game in action, then make sure you subscribe for my Let's Play, which will be coming shortly after this review. Until next time.